It's Jefferson, climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness! Come on!
What is up? Jabroni JJ back here with Gary, and look who we have here. Mangone, 2 shows in 1 week with the two of us. I don't know who, feels better, me or you, about this, but good stuff. So, Mangone, I'll start with you. I know you're doing some League of Legends stuff, always multitasking. What's going on? How's your morning been?
Yeah, I woke up not too long ago because I was watching some League of Legends last night. It did not go well for me. So, I happened to wake up at 6 and my team was playing, and I said, I gotta watch the boys, and then they got destroyed. But not a great way to start the Father's Day off, but should be fun. We got the golf tonight. That'll be a great time. Obviously, we got that locking. I think it just locked. So we sweating the golf out. That'll be a lot of fun. We also have the F1, right? That starts in 2 hours. I'm already registered for the contest. And our boy Rubio Dimes is on the playbook. So we have all of the sports for you guys. So be sure to check that out. And yes, of course, we have MMA DFS, as Jason says in the chat. No one loves MMA DFS more than Travis Mangone. And of course, you guys make fun of me every single week for making fun of MMA. But every single week, there's some bullshit that happens. And you guys are complaining on Twitter. So don't tell me it's a great DFS sport. It's not. It's super fun to watch. It's great to bet on. DFS-wise, you guys are just wrong.
And I'll slide over to you, Gary. Happy Father's Day, by the way. And happy Father's Day to everybody. Gary, what's going on? What's going through the mindset right now as you're kind of looking through maybe projections, lineups, and ready to talk through some of these games?
Yeah, so this show is going to be quite interesting for me because I'm multi-entering today, and the slate locks soon as the show wraps up here. So I'm kind of dialing my last exposures here. DraftKings, I think this week, or I think the mega or the whatever the penny thing is this week. So
the Micro Millions, it's called.
Yeah, the whatever. I think that's going to start up this week. They got a good 50-cent, 150 max tournament on DraftKings today with a little increased prize pool. So it's going to be a little bit stressful for me over here during the show, trying to nail in Saber and get all my lineups in. But I'm confident we can get through it here. And I think I have some pretty crazy takes for today as far as pitching goes anyway. So definitely looking to dive into it.
And so maybe it's my job as the host to move this along. I know Holden just loves to make this show go as long as possible, just consistently 3 straight weeks over an hour long. So yeah, I think that without that bullshit in the mix, I think we'll be able to move this puppy along as required. Yeah, I have some bets. I'll also give away one of Joey's bets for this as well. But look, folks, as obviously people pile in and start, more and more people start watching this on this lovely Sunday, be sure to like the video. It's not hard. It's a simple ask. And also, if you want all the content for today, head over to runpuresports.com, right? You'll get it all. Obviously, Mangone mentioned a bunch of sports going on live today and obviously all throughout the week as well. Tomorrow's also a holiday for many, so I hope you all enjoy the 3-day weekend if you have it. But yes, let's just dive right in, right? Why hold things up? I know Gary said that you're going to be stressing a lot through as we try to get through this slate right before lock. First game's on Peacock, Cubs, Orioles, 105. Jamison Tyon, Dean Kramer. Baltimore, a little bit of a slight road favorite here, total 8.5. I personally don't have anything I like on this game. I feel like the line's relatively fair both ends. Gary, DFS-wise, I know you said you had some hot takes. Does one of them happen to be in this game?
I love Dean Kramer today. He's probably one of my favorite pitchers on the slate. This Cubs team hasn't been good. If you pull up the hand in this chart, the Cubs have struck out the 7th most over the last 2 weeks against right-handed pitching, and they have been the worst in WRC plus, the worst in isolated power. So yeah, Dean Kramer has been pretty good this season. I like the price tag a lot. I like the K prop. I like everything here about Dean Kramer. And I also, on the other side, I absolutely love the Baltimore bats here. I think this game is going to be just a shellacking of the Cubs here. I'm a little jealous because Steve Boynton and Joey Work are going to be at this game. Joey Work is shirking on his duties here on the show to go to a baseball game with Steve Boynton, which is very hurtful. But at least he gets to see the Orioles put up a crooked number here. So I like this lineup top to bottom, especially the lefties. Tyon has just been terrible. I mean, 303 ISO and a 434 weighted on base. against left-handed bats here. Gunnar Henderson has been on fire against righties leading off. I like Adley Rutschman. I like this whole lineup. Santander, O'Hearn, even Hicks. Nobody's going to play Hicks. He's been pretty good for this Orioles team. So, yeah, I love the Orioles in this spot. Any way you can bet them, that's a good bet. I like the Orioles here.
And it's interesting, right, between Tyon, Montgomery. I know that certain Yankee fans took hard stances on the fact that they got rid of them too. But woof, has that turned out to be a positive. Tyon's been a bit of a mud, and Montgomery just can't get out of his own way consistently with bad start after bad start after bad start. Mango, anything you love in this game? Any directions you're going particularly for DFS?
Yeah, before we do that, I just want to address one thing in the chat. This is not my burner account, Uncle. I just want to clarify. This is not my burner, okay? Right, just making sure it's known. But yeah, I do think that from the bet side, I think the Orioles are a good bet. I got some money on them today, so I guess I'm kind of around with Gary on that. But I'm not dying to play Dean Kramer as a pitcher. But I will say this is a pitching slate. Like if you look around, I mean, it's not terrible to get creative, right? Like the chalky options are Charlie Morton and Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta definitely prone to blowups. Charlie Morton in a good matchup against Colorado, but I think even Gary would admit Charlie Morton chalk can be dicey at times. It's definitely not and again, he's a Braves fan too. So, and I like Morton. I'm going to obviously have exposure to him today. I think he's one of the best pitching options, but I think there are ways to get a little bit creative today. So, Dean Kramer, I don't think is the worst idea on this slate. If you're looking for some pitchers, just because this Cubs lineup, again, they can hit a ton. They won me a lot of money earlier in the week, but they can also be really, really bad at times. And this is not a good park, right? I mean, this is Baltimore, right? Or is it Chicago? Which one is it?
They're in Chicago.
They're together. Yeah. Sorry. So, and it's wind blowing in, I believe. I was looking earlier at that. Yeah. So wind is blowing in. So that's not super encouraging anyways. So yeah, I'm not super excited about this game. I think it's one that I'm just going to kind of move on from. I guess you can make the case Gunnar Henderson because of the positions. When you look like third base, shortstop, those positions, for his price at 4K, I think he's a pretty interesting option as like one-off, two-man stacks. Obviously, if you threw like an Adley Rutschman in there, but yeah, that's kind of the main way that I'm handling this team.
I do always like, and obviously in some breaths I can appreciate this in some breaths, but in other breaths the dude's going to be 1% owned. It's not like Gary's saying he's going to be.
Oh, you're not on me. I'm an idiot.
It's not like Gary's saying he's going to be locking in Aaron Hicks, but I mean on a guy that's 2,900, which is a practical free square in this day and age of DFS. What exactly does he need to do today to find his way into an optimal with the right stack of that group? So no, look, at the end of the day, dude's gonna be less than 1% owned, probably 1%. So no, I don't mind that at all. And obviously the Kramer end looking like he's gonna be 5 to 8% owned. So yeah, I mean all good there. I could definitely get behind that. So let's move on to the next game.
Dunkel, by the way, Brian brought up something that's good to know too. If you just don't want to play the first game, and like I know some people who use an optimizer are kind of like they're worried about it to start out. Even let's say Gary, I mean I know he wants to play Dean Kramer, but let's say you didn't like this first game, you could just fade everyone on your lineup from that first game and then go through and do it later, right? I mean you're only missing one game and you can do it like your normal process. So that's one strategy that you can go about that Brian kind of mentioned in the chat.
Like that too. Obviously, you build your optos, just fade the game entirely. You'll know for a fact that you ain't going to get players from it. All right, so let's move on. Game number 2, Braves Rockies. Rockies, woof. My lone loss yesterday in the betting streets. I bet their team total over. They had opportunity, sure. Ended up with 2 runs, but I don't think they had a single hit with a runner in scoring position. With that said, look, they just haven't been hitting. Right, it's now 3 or 4 straight games. I think less than 2 runs from them. Charlie Morton is a guy I prefer to play at home. I'm interested, Gary. I'm interested in your take on Morton. I figure he's got to be in the running today. Ownership-wise, I'll pull up projections in a moment. But in relation to betting, I could go back to the Rockies well here. But man, just looking at their lineup, it's just like, where are you going to find runs? I mean, Moustakas went yard yesterday. Who hits out of the? I think he was 7th yesterday, but hit 6 today. This lineup's just ugly, right? Outside of really McMahon, who do you really even trust with pop consistently anyway? So yeah, it makes it tough. And obviously they're minus 300. So from the DFS side, I'm sure Morton's going to see plenty of ownership. It looks like he's going to be, and Gary, you correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be the chalkiest pitcher on the slate. So walk me through what you're doing with this game. And obviously if you play Morton, are you playing the Braves bats? Braves bats nuked yesterday. I think they even nuked the day before. So what are we doing here with the Braves?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to play the Braves. I'll start on their bats here. I mean, Chase Anderson is one guy I kind of hate to stack against him because he always finds a way to Houdini himself out of ridiculous situations. But man, this Braves team is just firing on all cylinders right now, and hot streaks in baseball are a thing. I think they're just feeling some sort of way. I know that I wish Sean Murphy was in the lineup today. He left the game yesterday with a little hammy tightness, so hopefully he won't be out for too long. But Travis d'Arnaud, he came in on, I think it was Friday night or yesterday, one of the two. I think it was Friday night. He hit 2 home runs. He's always a great catcher option here. So, yeah, I want to go right back to the Braves. Well, they're not my favorite stack on the slate today, but I will have some Braves 5-mans. And for Morton, I'm going to be under the field on him in my multi-entry set here today. Whenever he's 50+% owned, I'm just going to go under. And I think there's a pretty elite pivot in tournaments today up in that price range that I'm going to be way, way overweight on today. And you can probably figure out who that is. I won't say him till later, but yeah. So I'm going to be a little underweight on Morton. I don't hate him here. Like you said, the Rockies have not been hitting the ball at all. And he has been better of late, strikeout-wise, to left-handed bats, and the Colorado Rockies have 6 lefties in the lineup. So
the one thing I'll say, too, on the Rockies end is that yesterday was kind of tilting for me watching the game because outside of the Braves closer, they basically used all their best pen arms yesterday despite being up 10 runs. I know that they haven't been getting work, so I'm sure that's why they did it. I just found it so tilting to watch literally their typical setup and hold guys that come in when they have a 2-run or 3-run lead or less come in yesterday when they're up 11 runs. So, yeah, obviously the bullpen took a little bit of a hit yesterday. I don't think they care. They're very likely going to sweep the series. But Mangone, what are you doing with this game? Obviously, Ronald Acuna will see good ownership. It's kind of crazy, right? A guy at 6,600 that's looking like he's going to get about 25% owned on a pretty big slate. But what are you doing with the Braves today, pitching or hitting?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you played the Braves and you straight up faded Acuna, right? You'd instantly be different, right? He's going to be on every single team. Now, I'm not saying you should do that. You have to find ways to make your teams different, your stacks different. Maybe that's playing guys more towards the bottom line. Maybe it's fading in Albies, Riley, d'Arnaud, and going Acuna, Olsen, and some of these bottom of the order guys, right? Just find the right way to kind of do the mix, right? That's always key. Or maybe it's with your mini stack. Maybe it's just mini stacking them, right? You just need to think through how you play this Braves team. They're definitely good. I don't think you should go through on this slate and just X them completely from the pool. Run your teams, see what happens. Maybe set a rule where you get, a bunch of different stacks, and maybe you'll get less Braves stacks than you think. Or maybe you'll find a team that fades the Braves that you're very pleasantly surprised about. So those are some things that I like to do. When it comes to Charlie Morton, how do we handle him today? So Gary definitely talked about going under the field on him. When I kind of run my stuff, I always set a cap on my pitching, right? When I run everything, I do not want 100% of a pitcher pretty much most of the time. Listen, if I want to play Spencer Strider, right, and he's in the nut spot, I can run 200+ teams. I'll find a Spencer Strider team I like, right? I want to see some mixes sometimes without these guys to see what does it look like to make a fade of Charlie Morton. You might be pleasantly surprised of how good of a team you might find. And then if that buries about 50% of the field, well, that's one play just completely nuking him, right? And that's if he gets you 10 DK points, and that's possible he goes out there and does that. I do think sometimes people make the argument pitching just doesn't hurt you and you should just eat that chalk there. But I'll be honest, this year pitching has been rough. So I'm definitely going to make sure to limit my exposure on Morton when I run my teams. I'm sure he'll be on some of my stuff. I'm putting him on my 3-max stuff now as I'm kind of dialing that all in. When it comes to the Rockies, they're a team I don't need to play. I think they're a team I'm just going to full on fade. So no real interest in this Rockies team. I know they have some young players that have gotten called up. Maybe you could make a case like a McMahon one-off or a Nolan Jones one-off. Maybe if that fell on a team, sure, just because we know Morton can have his struggles against lefties. But it's not a spot to jam any Rockies in my opinion. I understand the leverage idea, but this isn't the spot to do leverage, in my opinion.
I want to interject here, too. One more final thing on the Braves. So Mangone, he mentioned something earlier about stacking maybe the bottom of the lineup. If you look at the last 7 days for the Braves, the bottom of the lineup's doing most of the damage. It's Michael Harris, it's Orlando Arcia, it's Eddie Rosario, and Ozzie Albies. Those are the 4 guys that have been doing all the damage for the Braves. So I don't hate Ronald is super, super expensive. He's going to be chalky. just play the other cheaper outfielders instead, and play the wraparound stack. Leave Acuna off and play Ozzie at second base. I think that makes for an awesome stack here.
Fair, and get you quite different, or a little different, at least from where and I know we use this term relatively loosely in terms of chalk in relation to bat stacks, because it's a big slate. Like, even if the Braves are one of the biggest stacks, like as a stack, they're still going to be 10%. Like, it's not going to be like this crazy owned stack. And again, if you take Acuna out of the mix with a stack, you're immediately different, as Mangone mentioned.
They could be today, Dunkel, just because I'm on. This is always a good way to look at it too. I'm on the stack chart today, and like Braves have an implied total of 6.3. Miami's at 5, Mets 4.9, and Boston 4.8. Like, there is a gap there between it. Like, when I always like to incorporate this as, I always like to call it, it's like the Braves are kind of like Coors Field today, like a really good Coors spot. That's how I would incorporate the ownership. I do think you're going to see the ownership be pretty high in those spots. So you do have to think a little bit of how you play it, right? And obviously, if you mix in those bottom of the other guys, right? That's how I always talk about it. Or let's say you do, like, sometimes people are just like, oh, I want to fade the Braves fully. Well, what if you did a 2-man or 3-man stack? I mean, you're going to be different with your 5-man and other things. So there's other ways to kind of make it work.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to Nationals, Marlins, Corbin, Luzardo. Miami's a -160 fave. I think they're going for the sweep here. Sticks have looked relatively live, which isn't crazy in this park with the warm weather. Corbin, you would think would help towards that. What I find interesting, Mangone, I'll start this game with you. What I find interesting as I look through projections and optos and whatnot, Luzardo at 9.9, 20% owned on the road. I just find that absolutely insane. I know his K rate's crazy good. I just find that insane for a guy that walks as many dudes as he does, and for a guy that struggles as poorly as he often does on the road. Are you doing anything with this game? I understand there could be some runs because of the weather, but these lineups are so trash. But if you're looking for cheap alternatives in a park where the ball will carry today, yeah, here it is. What are you doing with this game in any regard?
Yeah, let's see what that lineup really is. I know the Marlins isn't bad, but the Nationals, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Just because sometimes on Sundays, right, we get watered down lineups, and when you get the Nationals doing a watered down lineup, it could be really ugly. But Luzardo's definitely in play today, and I don't think he's going to be the popular pitcher. I think the other guys will be a little bit more popular. So I'm kind of considering him as one of the pivot options. I do think you have to like Luzardo a little bit in this spot. I know some of these guys have been hitting the ball well, and it's 84 degrees. That's the one concern, right? Holden's not in the show, but if Holden was here, he'd be telling us that Washington Park plays a little bit smaller, right? 85 degrees, wind blowing slightly out. So I do think this is a spot where bats are in play on both sides. I think Marlins will be a little bit more popular. I think I like them more as mini stacks rather than the full 5-man, just because if you do full 5-man, the Marlins stack, right, you're likely going to have a lot of salary left over. And then that's going to land you on that Morton Peralta route. And I don't need to go to that. Now, of course, sure, that's perfectly fine. But I just think the Marlins price tags are way better set for that mini stack. Maybe it's Soler with a birdie, or a birdie with a Fortes is a cheap catcher option. I just think or Cooper at first base. These are solid cash game options that are against a guy like Patrick Corbin, who's not good, who can give up a lot of runs. But I think I just kind of prefer it more as the mini stack rather than that 5-man stack at this time. Nationals wise, Ruiz is always in play for me just because catcher's not great and he's got a little power and pop. So he's someone you can consider as a one-off option. Lane Thomas too, so that could give you a nice little mini stack if you would like. And then Joey Meneses. So I'd really be targeting maybe some of these righties. But again, it's more like one-offs and maybe minis, but not trying to get high exposure to this one. It is a 9 total. And if you think Luzardo has ownership, Dunkel, there's a little bit of leverage there with some Nationals bats as a mini stack.
What are you doing here, Gary? Because this is a type of pivot type game. As Mangone said, kind of finding your options to bob and weave. If bats had a little more girth to them, I think this would be a game that gets more stacked. But what are you doing here? Because there's still cheap bats in a total that's 9.5 in a game where ball's going to carry. What are we doing here?
Man, I'm in the minority here. I think Luzardo is one of the best pitching plays on the slate today. Everything that I'm seeing, I pull last 5 weeks worth of data on FanGraphs. He's got a 2.7 xFIP. He's got a 31% strikeout rate, and he's got a 4% walk rate in the last month. So he's not walking guys. He's striking a hell of a lot of guys out. And he's got a 2.7 xFIP. I normally don't like I said in the playbook today, I normally don't like to pick on this Nationals team. with pitchers just because they don't strike out a whole lot. They're a little pesky sometimes. But, man, I mean, everything that I see on Luzardo under the hood, especially the last 5 weeks, I mean, it's really good. I mean, no walks, like the lowest walk rate on the slate pretty much outside of maybe a Zach Greinke. But I like him here a lot. I'm not going to be on any Nationals bats. So I'm on that side of it. And for the Marlins, I love the Marlins here. Anytime we have Patrick Corbin going on the hill, I want to like some bats on the other side. And it starts up top. Dela Cruz, Soler, and Cooper are probably my 3 favorites here. They do have a rookie, Jacob Amaya, who's a decent guy, decent hitter, has some stolen base upside. He's min price in the 9 hole. A nice pivot off of the Angels, Velasquez, who's treated us well here the last couple days, who I think will be a little more popular. So I do like the Marlins here, and man, I really do love Luzardo in this spot. He's not going to be on my main team, but I'm going to have a lot. It's just like at the top of the pitching price spectrum. I think, Morton, I'm going to be underweight on Morton. He's going to be 50% owned. I'm going to be way overweight on John Gray. I'm going to be fading Chalk Peralta, because I never play fastball Freddie, especially at this price. So I have to have somebody up here, and I'm stacking against Bassett. So from just looking at all the options up here, I have to like Luzardo because I'm going to be underweight or fading 3 others here. So definitely like Luzardo.
Now, in relation, just real quick before we move on to the next game, I know our guy Jason says Soler, maybe double dong today. Looks like that dude's going to be the 3rd or 4th highest owned bat in the slate. You guys finding value? You guys finding him landing in your lineups in 4,900? Obviously, the righty lefty, the pop. Even at 4,900 at his ownership, are you still kind of going with the flow there, or are you just going to fade?
I mean, I like him in a stack. I wouldn't one-off him or anything like that. I mean, anytime you get a high on one-off, you don't want to go that route. You want to go somewhere, find a lower owned pivot in that range. But I definitely like Soler today.
Well, we the people.
Yeah, I think it would depend on your full lineup. Like, I don't mind the one-off when it's high owned at times. It just depends on, like, if you've just got like a Seattle Mariners, not Seattle Mariners. If you have a Texas Ranger stack, right? And like literally nobody is on the stack at all. Like,
not to totally cut you off, Mango, but obviously a few people are saying Soler is out. I mean, I have the lineup.
No,
did he get scratched?
Somebody like DraftKings has him out. I don't know if they still have him listed out. Their note on DraftKings is wrong. I've reached out to the Twitter machine. I see on MLB.com Soler's in the lineup. Jesus Sanchez is not in the lineup. It's Jorge Soler. So Soler has not been scratched.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that might add to some of the ownership, but I mean, lower some of the ownership potentially if DK doesn't fix that. I know they did that with a third baseman. I think it was a few weeks back or 2 weeks ago. So it does look like he's in. Obviously that could change, I guess, in theory. But as far as the lineups I see, it does look like he's in. All right. So just real quick, I know this Yankee game one is not in the main slate, but this was a game I did bet. I did bet the Yanks here at -115. I know yesterday against Bello, Clark Schmidt was going to be a small road dog, which I thought held some value. And now that the line moved a bit, I actually don't think it moved enough. Clark Schmidt, I believe, has 5 straight starts, 3 earned or less runs. Only one of those was 3 runs. The rest were all 2 or less. 6 of his last 7 starts are 3 runs or less. He's kind of figuring things out. And on the other end, Caleb Ort is a tough pitcher to watch. Yes, he has a decent strikeout rate, but he walks a massive amount of dudes. It definitely gives up a tremendous amount of hard contact. And while this Yankees lineup is still sort of watered down, it's just a big advantage for them. They have an advantage in the pen. They have an advantage with the pitching matchup. So, yeah, and Stanton's back in there. I think he came back a few days ago. I know Judge is still out, but really like this spot behind Schmidt. Again, maybe a blow-up start's coming for Schmidt, possibly, but he's looked really good. He hasn't been in a lot of jams, and even when he has been getting them in, he's not been getting rattled, not giving up a lot of home runs either. So, yeah, really like Schmidt today at that small price, a road fave against Ort, a pitcher who just consistently struggles at the major league level. So more or less maybe like more of a quad A guy. But yeah, I think the Yanks get to him a bit, and I think the price is too short. I think this line should have completely swung, where the Yankees should have been -130. So -115, I did jump on Clark Schmidt. So, okay, let's move on to the next game that is on the slate. Another game actually that I bet, Mets Cards. It's actually my favorite game on the main slate for runs. Cookie Carrasco is usually a guy you can rely on at home, but he has not been that version of himself this year at home or on the road. He's walking a ton of dudes. His strikeouts are down. And Liberatore is not a guy I trust in any regard either. The Cardinals are once again in shambles. However, this is a warm game in City. I know this park plays big at times, but this is a warm game today in New York. 2 mid-arms at best. Cards went through their pen yesterday. Both these arms of both teams don't see a lot of don't exactly eat innings, so I think you're going to see pens early from both. Just really good spot for runs all around. A lot of foot traffic. Obviously, expecting a few balls to leave the yard as well with the warm weather. So even at 9.5, I got that plus 100. I really like this game for runs. Again, favorite game for runs from my end on this whole slate, at least collectively anyway. Gary, I'll start with you. As far as game stacks go, what are you doing here? And do you kind of agree with the sentiment of, runs should be aplenty here?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like runs in this game, but it's weird, though, because I don't like 5-man stacking either one of these teams, at least on today's slate. There's just a couple other stacks I like better, but I love them as many stacks here. The Mets got Pete Alonso back in the lineup today, so that's a big boost to them back in the cleanup spot. So, so Liberatore is somebody that I normally have targeted frequently. Today won't be an exception to that rule. But like I said, I just don't like as far as the Mets lineup goes, I just feel like they never get over the hump, as far as what you want for a full 5-man stack. So I'll just stick with the top of the lineup here, some mini stacks, and pretty much the same thing on the St. Louis side. I mean, Carrasco is another guy who I attack regularly. Every start, the lefties here specifically are a lot. He's struggled a lot versus the lefties, but he's also struggled versus righties. So that's also a good recipe for runs. And the Mets bullpen has not been that good. So while I do like both offenses here, I think I'm just going to stick to mini stacks with them.
And look at how cheap some of these bats are, Mangone. I mean, you get a game where it looks like everybody's going to be relatively low owned in. I mean, not super low, but looks like between that 4 to 8-9% ownership end. And they're cheap, relatively as far as the whole stacks go, they're cheap. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I think the Mets, I don't think they're going to come in at 5% or anything crazy. I think they are going to get steamed up. Now the question is how high. I'm not that worried about it. I'm still going to play it. It's not like this spot where I'm going to start to fade, but don't be surprised if the Mets are kind of that steam candidate team of the slate. So I do think they're definitely going to be a good stack. They're one that I'm going to be on. Listen, I'm not a big fan of Matthew Liberatore. He's definitely gotten better and improved, but this Mets offense, I mean, they definitely have some good bats in there. They add Pete Alonso. I know he's been dealing with some injuries. This is definitely a spot where you got to like these Mets. I mean, Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso, Pham, Alvarez, McNeil, Escobar, Canha. You don't have to be excited about Escobar and Canha, but I don't know. The rest of it, the 1 through 7 is pretty solid. So I definitely like this Mets team. I'm going to get exposure to them here on this slate. I think a lot of people are spending down at the first base position. So if you spend up for, someone like Pete Alonso, it's going to help you be a little bit different. And I think if people spend up at shortstop, they're not going Francisco Lindor. They're going Bobby Witt Jr. So there's definitely going to be a lot of opportunity here for this Mets team. Have a big game. I like how you said it's hot out there too. So that's obviously encouraging. The Cardinals are a team. I understand attacking Carrasco. He can just find ways to get the job done, which can be frustrating. This is just I have two things joining together. I have Carlos Carrasco, who always finds a way to get it done, even though the numbers say it shouldn't. And then I got a Cardinals team that just can't figure it out. So I'm just going to pass on the Cardinals. I know could look like an enticing spot to fall for the Cardinals, but I'm not going to fall for them here, Uncle.
Fair enough. I mean, ultimately, I can't argue that obviously the Cardinals have been so blah. But I do think the spot makes sense for them to get some traction. Another game with a decent number with 2 below mid arms. Royals Angels minus 125. What a game yesterday. I think the Angels were up 7 runs against the Royals and still lost. Some people are claiming this might be the end. This might be where Ohtani kind of really hangs it up for this group. Because it doesn't look like this Angels team is just going to be what they're supposed to be. I know that's only one game yesterday, but man, just another year with the Angels where it feels like they're just again underachieving. One could argue they have the best 2 bats in the American League on the same team, and they just still cannot get things together. And some of it's pitching, some of it's a few other things. But either way, here we are. Angels 7 games over 500 against the Royals, who, mind you, are basically just as bad as the Athletics. Maybe not in run differential, but in record, they're very close. Zach Greinke somehow continues to get outs despite the balls getting blistered off of his arm. What are we doing here? Mangone, I'll start with you for this game. Total of 9. There's probably going to be some cheap bats if you want to target on the Royals end. I will say this. It's just not very often from here on moving forward. Same thing with the Athletics, where you're going to get the Royals in a close to pick 'em spot. Do you see any value back in the Angels, or do you think from a momentum standpoint, yesterday might have just really took the wind out of their sails?
Well, Duncan, I think I saw the Kansas City Royals are the least profitable MLB team this season. So if you bet on the Royals every single day, you have lost a lot of money. So I think I'd be going with the Angels if I'm getting it at the close money. So that would be the side that I would be on. DFS wise, I'm obviously going to like this game. Playing in a Coors Field with a K, Kauffman Field, as AP likes to call it. We got Tyler Anderson and Zach Greinke on the mound. I think it's a great spot for both offenses. We'll start with the Angels. I mean, Zach Greinke, one thing I will say is the guy is a crafty guy, right? He's one of those, you try to pick on him at times and it doesn't work out. Yes, sometimes it does, but he's one of those guys that feels like every single time he's honestly, everyone wants to pick on him. But with these Angels bats, they've just been hitting the ball really well. I'll pull up one of the pieces of content that we have over here because I was looking at it the other day. Steve Boynton has the split ranks chart, and let's see how the Angels have been doing. Because I know the other day when I saw them listed, can't remember if it was against a righty or lefty, but they were pretty high up there on the list because they've been hitting pretty well the last 14 days, which I like to look at last 14 days data, right, to kind of help with some decisions. If only this thing would load. I am sitting here talking to myself to help make it work, but here we go. WRC plus against righties, last 14 days. First, ISO, first. WRC plus the ISO and the average. That is first. Strikeouts, they're 17th. And on the season, I mean, they're third and second as well. So this is a team that absolutely has been crushing righties. I think this is a really good spot for these Angels. I want to get exposure to them, right? Taylor Ward, Ohtani, Trout, Drury, Renfroe. Then we got at second base, Stefanik. He's just a 2K punt. 2K punts. Now, I even know much about Mr. Stefanik, but I'm perfectly fine with it. If Dunkel was in there at 2K, I'd certainly play him today. I mean, it works out, helps get me everything I want for my team. Chad Wallach, he's obviously a good catcher punt option we can go to as well. Again, it's a punt. It helps make things work, help me get everything on my teams. Luis Rengifo and Velasquez, they're fine options if I need the salary to make it work. But I'm going to prioritize the big boys for sure, right? I'm prioritizing Ohtani, Trout, and then one of at least Ward, Drury, and Renfroe, if not two, and then trying to mix in one or two of these punt options down there on the Angels when it comes to the Royals. And also, we got Bobby here calling me right now. He's clearly not watching the show, so that's very hurtful, Bobby. Just want to call.
He wants you to put his core in for him.
What?
He wants you to put his core in for him.
Okay, well, I will text him once I finish my Kansas City Royals breakdown and let him know. But Kansas City Royals, I like them a lot too. And I feel like I've been on them. If you follow my 3Max content, I've been on them a lot this year in spots. And I kind of cooled off them a little bit the past couple of weeks, but I think it's a good time to get back on. Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez, two great options you can put at your catcher and shortstop position. You got Matt Duffy, Garcia. Salmon Taylor is a really easy punt option at the second base position, like I just talked about with punting second base. You could put him at the catcher position, or not catcher, the outfield position if you wanted as well at 2K. But I'd rather him at that second base position personally. Freddie Fermin, another good catcher option that I'm happy to put in there. Think he's a pretty solid play. And then I know Blanco is a really good stolen base guy at that bottom of the lineup. I forget who was telling me. DC was telling me the dude's got like 47 stolen bases in the minors this year, or something insane. So if you're looking for a punt option that has some speed, he's certainly an interesting option that I'm going to include in my stacks, right? He's a very cheap option that helps allow me get in Bobby Wood Jr., Salvador Perez in that 5-man stack. And who knows, maybe it gives me a pretty nice mini stack too that's kind of expensive.
Cool. Gary, what about you? What are we doing this game? Anything crazy?
Man, I don't think I can do anything in this game. I think I'm just going to treat this game as it doesn't exist. I mean, Zach Greinke is a guy that, he just Houdini's himself. I'm looking at his last 30-day numbers here against righties specifically. All right. And this Angels team has 6 righties in it today. I mean, he's 27% strikeout rate, 1% walk rate, 0%, 0 ISO, 114 WOBA, 51% ground ball rate. He's been absolutely elite against right-handed bats over the last month. I know it's still Zach Greinke, but man, this guy just, like I said before, he's another one of these Houdini pitchers that just finds a way to just limit the damage. Now, this would be a completely different conversation if the Angels rolled out 6 lefties, vice 6 righties. So Ohtani is probably the only guy that I like, and I'm probably just not going to play him because he's going to be high owned. He's going to be one of the higher owned bats on the slate, and I don't play those guys as one-offs. So I'm going to be off the Angels here for better or for worse. If they beat me, they beat me, and I'll move on about my day. And I can never play KC. I mean, they're just so bad. Tyler Anderson isn't good either, but man, I guess maybe a Bobby Witt one-off. But I'm definitely not stacking this team. I mean, you just look at the names. It's not very interesting for me to stack today. So I'm going to be off this game and hope it doesn't beat me up too bad.
Gunnar Henderson just got scratched, so get him out of your lineups.
Well, that stinks.
Yeah, definitely makes for the backload even more, I think, for me. I'll say that.
Gotta rerun my stuff.
Yeah, and if you're doing cash games, he was definitely a popular option. So
for sure.
Yeah, you gotta have to change it up.
All right, so Astros Reds. Astros about $1.60 here. Luke Weaver has been very difficult to watch pitching wise. However, the Reds have been really smacking around with the sticks. Obviously a young trendy team, but they've been playing really well. I think they've won 6 or 7 straight now, possibly. And Manuel Blanco is definitely hittable. When you see a guy whose whip is basically half of his ERA. It's usually bad, not good. The dude's ERA is 3.8, but his whip's 1.7. So you'd figure a Reds team that's hitting is likely going to get to him today. Gary, I'll start with you. I don't have any hard takes on this betting-wise. I think that Houston, you could argue some value on them just because this price is watered down a bit with how good the Reds have been playing. However, it's hard to fade teams that are hitting, especially when they're playing a pitcher that's vulnerable. What are we doing here? Anything you like in this game stack-wise?
I like the over for runs scored here. So I like runs to be scored from both sides here. Like you said with Blanco, you said his whip was 1 point something. His xFIP is 5.32. So that should tell you something. It's one of the worst on the slate. He's got a 20% strikeout rate, almost a 15% walk rate, 100% left on base rate too over the last 5 weeks. That's never good. Regression is coming fast, and I think it's going to hit today. I love this Cincinnati Reds team. They got Jake Fraley back in the mix in the lineup today, so that's a good thing for them. TJ Friedel, Ellie De La Cruz, McLean, India. I like this whole team. I like them as a 5-man stack. I like them as a 3-man. My only hesitation about the 5-man is Houston's bullpen, who is really good. But I'll take a chance. I mean, I think Blanco is one of the worst pitchers on the slate. And while I do have him listed in my player pool, I can see it going both ways, put it that way. Playing Blanco and also playing Reds bats. Blanco play is just a $5,500 pitcher where there's no other cheap options that I like today anyway. So I like the bats more in this game. I'll have a smidge of Blanco in tournaments, like I said, just because of the $5,500 price tag. But I definitely love runs to be scored on both sides, and I definitely like Houston in the same regard. I'll have some 5-mans, and I'll have some mini stacks for both of these teams.
What about you, Mangone? Obviously, Gary's overweight on the bats here. But anything you love here?
We're on the Houston game, correct, Uncle?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure. I don't want to say without sounding like an idiot, and I'm talking about the wrong game. Changing a bunch of stuff with the Gunnar Henderson stuff, so I'm not sitting here, doing something not important. But I do think this Astros team is in play. I'm definitely not playing any Cincinnati, right? Like when I run everything, I don't like Cincinnati. I'm not jamming Cincinnati in my stuff. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. When it comes to this Houston team, though, the one thing I am slightly concerned about is this lineup is a bit watered down today. I'm no doubt getting some Astros on some of my teams. And yeah, Luke Weaver's not that good. But this lineup, again, it's not great. Dubon, Bregman, Tucker, and then it's Jose Abreu, who's been hitting the ball better, to be fair. Look at his last 30 days number. He's definitely improved. Diaz, Chas McCormick, Pena, Jolks, and Maldonado. Like this Astros lineup That 5 through 9 is definitely a little bit uglier. So that's one thing to note. Maybe I'll just stick with minis with the Astros a little bit, just because they have enough value on their team where you could do like a Dubon and Abreu, right? Or like an Abreu and Diaz, right? I think that's not a bad route to go. So maybe I'll stick more to minis because of that. But I just don't know if I'm that excited about the Astros. Like, I want to be, trust me. I like this Astros team typically, but this lineup is definitely a lot worse. If you remember the Dodgers the other day, right? The Dodgers, like early in the week, they kind of weren't hitting the ball well, and their lineup was absolute crap. And it's just that it's been brutal. So I think I might kind of take a backseat on the Astros a little bit more the more I keep thinking about it. It's just going to be minis if I play them, probably not 5-mans.
Okay. Can't argue. Twins, Tigers. It looks like Varland's on the hill for the Twins. Do we know who's starting for the Tigers yet?
Yeah, hold on.
I don't think I see it here. I know I haven't refreshed my starters there.
Will Vest.
Okay, so what, an opener and then coming in with Englund behind him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so we look at this line, right? Low total, all things considered. 7.5, 8. Varland. Gary, I'll start this one with you. Any love for Varland, who's actually, been surprisingly pretty good. I know he's 8.7, not a great price tag, all things considered. I think we're really climbing the ladder if you play him at 8.7. This is a season high price. Seems like he typically can get you 6 innings. K rate's typically right there at a K per 9 or 9 per 9, if you will. Varland, any love there? Any love for anything in these lineups, despite the low total? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to stay away from this game again. I think this game has weather possibilities too, like a midday delay or mid-game delay, and that's never good for the pitchers. So I'm just going to stay away. It's a mediocre pitcher against a bad team. He's probably going to be somewhat popular, I would think. Varland's going to get some ownership on this slate. I just can't do it. Like I said, I like other spots a lot better, and I'm not gonna get hung up on Varland today, especially with the weather possibilities there. And I'm gonna be fading both sides for bats too. I just don't. This Twins team is not good. I can't go there.
Mangone, are you kind of in that same boat, or is there any kind of crazy stands you're taking for this one?
Yeah, we just got news that Candelario has been scratched, so the Candyman is out the lineup. So hopefully not too many more coming. We are on the
Minnesota game.
Yeah, that game's terrible because I was just saying to myself, Minnesota sucks, and I never play Minnesota. I also don't really play 7.5 implied totals too often. So, yeah, I think I am going to stay far away from this game. We have enough options I've talked about that could be good mini stacks. And, yeah, I don't know. I just hate playing the Twins. They're just never a team that I find appealing. And there's weather concerns. Like, why even bother?
Okay. Brewers, Pirates, Freddie Peralta, who seems to always eat ownership, despite how much he struggles. Now, granted, I personally do or have liked him at home, and I don't think that's a personal take. I think that objectively speaking, over his career, he's been a much better home pitcher than on the road. You still get live sticks in the Pirates here. Brewers minus 165 feels about fair, I will say. Luis Ortiz, another guy that feels like he's been stepping in shit. I know the 4.64 ERA might seem okay. It feels like it should be a lot worse than that. Another guy with a whip of practically 1.8. Mangone, I'll start with you for this because I know what Gary's take is going to be on fastball, Freddie. What do you like in this game, if anything? Like, are you pro Peralta? Are you pro the Brewers lineup against Ortiz here? What are we doing?
Yeah, so for one, like, I think you could always attack Peralta. And like this Tigers lineup is not Tigers, this Pirates lineup is a good lineup. It just came out too. Let's see. It is Bay, Reynolds, Sawinski, Santana, Joe, Marcano, Palacios, Castro, and DeLay. So we're missing McCutchen mainly. I think that's the main guy that we're really worried about here. So yeah, I think overall though, Pirates, they're in play as a leverage play, right? If I had to tell you, you're going to leverage off Morton or Peralta, which one would you leverage off of? It would be the Pirates. Now, they're not a team that's popping for me or a team that I think I'm playing. Also, Matt Vierling just got scratched, so we'll toss that one in there. Just stay safe out there. Every single player is getting scratched right now, it seems like. But I do think the Brewers stack is a really good one. I know Luis Ortiz is someone that I placed a wager against the other day, and I stacked against as well, and I had a nice little profit over on FanDuel. Got third place. So I think I want to go back to the well with some Brewers here. This Brewers team has enough big bats in the lineup where I feel safe about it, right? You got Yelich, Winker, Adames, Tellez, Contreras, Owen Miller, and it's got Tapia, who's not great, right? But he's a punt option. Lefty gets at least the platoon advantage, so that's solid. Urias, and then Joey Weimer. And Joey Weimer's had a solid season as like a low-owned play. That's definitely won some people tournaments. So I think overall, this Brewers team should not be ignored. It seems like one of these teams that people are not going to gravitate towards. I think you're going to get them at very, very low ownership. And maybe it's a little biased because Mr. Ortiz helped win me some money the other day. But I think this is a spot where the Brewers could definitely explode for a big day.
And Gary, I know you're not going to be on Peralta. I know you're the anti-Peralta. But what about the Brewer sticks? And to that extent, knowing that Peralta's going to see ownership again, are you on the Pirate sticks?
I like minis from both teams here. I don't like the full 5-man. This Milwaukee team, you just look at the lineup. Winker, Adames, Tellez, Contreras, Miller. The bottom of the lineup, Miller, Tapia, Urias, and Weimer. Weimer has been really good. He hit another homer yesterday. So I do like Weimer down there at the bottom of the lineup, but I don't see myself jamming 5 of these guys here in my lineup against Ortiz, even though he is very, very bad, especially versus lefties. The lefties here are definitely the ones that you want, even though I do love me some Joey Weimer at the bottom of the lineup. And on the other side, Freddie Peralta, man, I just don't understand how this guy keeps getting ownership on these massive slates, and people keep playing him after he gets like 10 fantasy points at his price. I just can't do it. He's bad. He's allowing 207 ISO to the left side, 370 ISO to the right side over the last month. He's just been really bad, 20% strikeout rate. I mean, why do people want to play him? I don't understand it. Can you all explain that to me?
Mangone?
It's just a projection thing because of the it's probably using all the season longs data, right? It's using longer data than you're looking at, right? So it's just a matter of what kind of data you look at versus someone else. That's really the reasoning behind it. I also think probably because of what his ceiling numbers can be, it's part of it too. And so and to be fair on this slate, the pitching isn't great, right? Like the other,
I get it.
The other pitching options are Louis Varland.
Like, would y'all rather play him or John freaking Gray, who's been dominant all season? I mean, I know he's playing the Blue Jays, but man, like, there's no way on earth that John Gray should be his ownership and Freddie Peralta should be his ownership on today's slate. I just don't get it. I think it's a huge edge.
No, I mean, I've been playing John Gray a lot, so I'm with you.
It's a perfect segue, boys. Rangers, Blue Jays, John Gray, Chris Bassett. 2 good arms, 2 very live arms, total 8.5, warm game in Texas. Obviously, Gary, you seem like you have a strong stance here on Gray, so I'll kick it over to you. What is it you like most? I mean, I think Gray is like second in the league in WHIP, I think, over a certain period of innings. So what are we doing here? Obviously, you like Gray. You're climbing the ladder price-wise with him, but if the argument is that he is this good, I know he's had good stuff for years. It seems like he's starting to really put it all together. What are we doing here?
I mean, yeah. So over the 5, you mentioned WHIP. He's got a .68 WHIP over the last 5 weeks, which is truly elite. Yes, his xFIP is 3.28, but he does have a 32% strikeout rate, a 4% walk rate. Just been super incredible. I think the lineup for the Toronto Blue Jays came out. They got I thought there was a guy in there I never heard of. I guess it's their normal lineup, unless I'm missing something here. I thought I saw somebody else in the lineup that I've never seen before. Yeah, it's just their normal. Oh, they have somebody in the 8-hole that I've never seen before. That's what it is. But yeah, I mean, I know. So John Gray has been truly elite versus right-handed bats all season, especially over the last 30 days. 266 WOBA allowed to right-handed bats. And this Toronto Blue Jays team has 7 right-handed bats in the lineup today. John Gray has been awesome all season. He's at home again here. Just like him a ton. He should not be less than 10% owned on this slate. So yeah, I'm going to be putting all my chips in. I'm probably going to have 50% in my 150 of John.
Now let me ask you this, Gary, not to totally blow up anything that you want to do or not do. Obviously, the ownership is going to be lower, which is great. Does it concern you at all, John Gray's real lack of K upside?
I mean, he's got a 32% strikeout rate over the last 5 weeks. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Well, I look at the betting markets, and he's tagging a 4.5. That's 2 and 3 less than some of your other studs on this slate. Now, granted, obviously, that's just a betting market perspective.
Yeah.
But, and granted, if you attribute what it is, so I guess the Blue Jays probably don't strike out much, right? I mean, as far as
no. So over the last 30 days, I'm looking at their data right now. Last 30 days against righties, they only have a 15% strikeout rate. So everybody's below 20%, basically, except for Kevin Kiermaier and whoever this new kid is in the 8-hole. Who I'm assuming is going to strike out. That's probably 3 free Ks right there. But I'm just going to trust in the talent here. I mean, I like the projection is low. I like that the K prop is low. I'd bet the over K prop. I mean, 100%, I think he gets 8, 9, 10 strikeouts here. I think he's dominant. I just think he's changed his way. I think he's good. And we play elite pitchers in these tougher matchups all the time. And I think he's an elite pitcher in this league now. So I'm going to be well over the field on him.
I like the stance. I mean, like I said, as long as you're going to stick by it, I like it. Even up against me bumping heads, you're still staying strong. So I love that. Mangone, on your end, this game, last game of the slate, anything really poke out for you?
Yeah, I mean, for one, if you can always play Texas, right? If you want to play Texas, that's certainly fine. I'm not going to say it's a bad idea, but it's not going to be probably what I go to today. So if you've been playing Texas, you want to keep firing on, feel free to fire on. I do like John Gray. Listen, Blue Jays, they're a good lineup, right? For sure. Like, they're a lineup that I definitely believe in and like to play, but they can definitely disappoint at times. And they're one of those teams that, sure, they got some big names in there, but they could strike out a bunch. And not having Matt Chapman in there, I mean, that's a little frustrating, right? He's definitely one of those better bats there. He's been absolutely crushing right-handed pitching this season. And that bottom of the lineup is Varsho, who I'm not that scared of Varsho, right? Varsho's a solid hitter, but I'm not scared of him. Kirk, Espinal, Horwitz, and Kiermaier. I mean, this is definitely a lineup that John Gray, I think, can take advantage of. So I like this spot for John Gray. I think he's a really good pivot off of Freddie Peralta or Charlie Morton, either or. You can either go above or below. It doesn't matter. He's in a dead zone, right? That little bit dead zone that I think he's not going to get a lot of ownership. And I'm willing to take a chance on him at his price tag of 10.1K.
Yes, that basically rounds out the slate, boys. Obviously, there's a few other games that we could briefly talk on. I will mention the fact of the games that are left. I did lay the first 5. I did lay a half-run first 5 with the Padres versus the Rays. I really liked – so Blake Snell looked really good yesterday. And I don't know if you guys have been – I mean, I'm sure following your own way, but Blake Snell's a very hot and cold pitcher. Oof, that boy's hot. There's like 5 straight starts now where he's given up 1 earned or less, I think. The Ks are up. So it looks like he's kind of finding that confidence again. And, yes, he'll fall out of that confidence at some point, but he's looked really strong. Dodgers lose by 15 runs yesterday, LOL. But in relation to the Padres-Rays game, Chirinos is a dude really, really waking up with bird shit on his windshield. I mean, the 2.35 ERA, but all the advanced stuff basically has him double that. I get it. The Padres have been hit and miss with their lineup. But, man, this is not a lineup to be screwing around with. And Chirinos just has regression coming. I think it's a perfect storm. I always prefer Musgrove at home. And I always prefer Musgrove against a team that will be free swinging. The Rays, while they do pile up a lot of runs, they have no problem free swinging. So, yeah, I really like the spot to back the Padres again. I backed them yesterday. I'll back them again today, first 5. Outside of that, guys, with the games that are left, obviously we have about 10 minutes till lineup blocks. Is there anything you want to touch on these late games? I mean, obviously nothing forced, but it's out of the DFS slate anyway. Anything you want to touch on with these late games? Mangone, I'll start with you. Actually, well, Gary looks prepared to say something. Maybe Gary has a strong take.
No strong take. I haven't even looked at it yet.
Okay, so Mangone, what do you got on deck?
I don't have a lot on deck, but I will say, Yankees Red Sox will be a showdown. That'll probably be a fun slate. So if you want to get on that, that'll be a lot of fun. Also, I will have a bet on the prop sheet for you guys today. I don't have it yet. I would like to provide it, but that requires me sitting at my computer and digging through numbers and making sure I get the proper thing. And I've been on a show covering for Holden. So, while I'm covering Holden's ass and he's having a great Father's Day, I was not able to get that done. And of course, let me tell a quick Holden story, right? Just because we know there's no chance he's listening to the show right now. So I send Holden said in the chat, this coming up week, he needs people to cover a couple days. And I asked, hey, I tried to cover a couple of them. He said, oh, no, someone else got it. Don't worry. I said, Holden, I'd like to cover your Father's Day show, right? I don't want you working on Father's Day. You got some young kids. Sure, they want to hang out with you and stuff, maybe go hit brunch together or something like that. And Holden goes, no, don't worry about it. I got it covered, right? I got everything covered. Don't worry. And then he doesn't even message our guy JSU to tell him about it. And, Dunkel, you said it was going to be a 2-man booth. And I said, no, that's why I hopped on, to make sure it got covered. And we had a nice little 3-man booth going. So, and Jason says that he told him that Holden's hiking the Grand Canyon. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case, but Holden doesn't strike me as a hike the Grand Canyon kind of guy. I think that'd be the last guy I would hike the Grand Canyon with. He would be complaining the entire way.
Yeah, he's a serial complainer. He has a lot of problems that he's dealing with, his own demons. Gary, to wrap the show up, so get you few extra minutes to build lineups, to get these folks a few extra minutes to build lineups. What do you want to end with? Any final notes for this slate?
So I forgot to say that I absolutely love Texas in this spot. They're my favorite stack on the slate, and I think they're going to destroy Chris Bassett. He's just really, really bad against left-handed bats, and I'm going to continue exploiting that. 368 WOBA, 298 ISO against lefties. So definitely love the Texas bats. So Texas, Atlanta, Cincinnati, Miami are kind of my teams that I'm building around today.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And obviously big on Texas between the pitching matchup and the hitting matchup. So good stuff all around. Folks, look, thank you for tuning in today. Obviously a lot of good content all around. I gave a few bets. Mangone's going to be adding a prop for himself. And Gary and Mangone both gave some pretty strong takes DFS-wise. So, yeah, obviously leverage it to build lineups. And again, yes, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. But look, with all that said, stay safe. As always, folks, gamble responsibly. And yes, run pure. We'll see you guys next time.